Hello everybody, Lawrence Fleming again. I wanted to finish up this little series I'm doing on Revelation. I'm not going to teach the whole book. It is not my expertise. And it doesn't go along with my message that we're to be ready for the return of Christ. So we're just going to finish up on chapter 11 and 12. And then as far as that's concerned, I'm done. We're going to go back to waiting. It's got to be soon. There's got to be some breaking stuff happening here. We're at the point where we're going to see some of the things that we just read about start happening. Well, it can't happen if we're here. So that's got to be coming up quickly. If we don't make it this fall, though, I've got another plan, so don't give up. But we don't want to talk about that until we get through this fall. So let's just keep looking on what seems to be a good time frame coming up. Trumpets, tabernacles, those would be good times to get out of here. But let's go ahead and finish up here. I'm going to start, I already read part of this, but I'm going to start in chapter 11, verse 1. Then I was given a reed like a measuring rod, and the angel stood saying, "Rise and measure the temple of God, the altar and those who worship there. But leave out the court which is outside the temple, and do not measure it, for it's been given to the Gentiles." Like I said yesterday when I did my other video, I believe that they're not going to completely have control of the Temple Mount yet. World War III would break out and all over the Temple Mount. So I don't think they're going to do that yet. The Antichrist is going to get them permission to erect a tabernacle. And it doesn't have to go there. It could be over in the city of David for a tabernacle. But whatever happens, the Antichrist is going to help negotiate that. And we're going to see some of the stuff that's going to finish up. As we saw, the seals went from beginning to end of the timeline. As soon as things start, then everything's going to continue all the way till the end once they start. But they haven't started yet. But we're about to see that. And then the trumpets overlay over the top of that. And then when they get to the end of the trumpets, then we're going to do some housekeeping. We get the Revelation 12 sign and some other stuff. We got the two witnesses, the 144,000. And then we're going to go, we're going to see the abomination of desolation and get into the bowl judgments. And those are after the abomination. And those are going to be the wrath of God judgments. And I'm just going to read a quick summary of what they amount to. You can go back in and read it if you want. Everything that we see in the way of seals, trumpets, and judgments, within that grouping, they're linear, but they're individually stacked on the timeline. So you got your seals, your trumpets, and your bowls all laid out over that. They all have their own unique way of dealing with man on earth. And no matter how bad it gets, there are going to be those that are not going to accept Christ, because Satan won't accept Christ. Satan has this same book that we've got. He knows the beginning and the end, because we know the beginning and the end. We've got the book. Now God has it in his heart and in his mind, or whatever you want to think about that. But Satan doesn't. He's not omnipresent, but he still has the book, and he just will not knuckle under. Pride. The most beautiful creature in the world, created by God, got the pride to go along with it, and he won't budge. So he's got the pit of fire that he's going to go into with all of his angels that followed him. That's how charismatic this Satan is, and his son, the Antichrist, will be as charismatic. We've seen little Antichrists before, plenty of them. The one that's coming is going to basically try to take over the world. We already have we've read the end. We know who wins. Okay. So we see what the temple is like. And that kind of tells us that they're going to put the tabernacle someplace. It may be on the Temple Mount. That would be a good place to help unite the Jews. If they do that, then it would be an easy way for the Antichrist to defile it. Because the Muslims won't stop him. The Muslims know about Jesus. He's in the Quran. They just don't think that he died and was resurrected. They just think he ascended directly to heaven. So he didn't die for sins, but he is the powerful prophet that he is, on top of going to be their Savior. I'm talking about the Quran, not talking about Christianity. He, of course, is the world's Savior for those that accept him. And we're running out of time. You need to accept him if you're watching this and you're not a Christian. You can't put it off. Because when we get raptured, all hell's going to break loose, literally. We're going to see here shortly that a little war is going to start between those that come out of the pit and God's people. Okay. They're cleaning up the campsite next to me, that group of 6 or 7 kids. Very noisy. All right. For it's been given to the Gentiles, talking about the outer court. And they will tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months. Where are we to? Talk about the 2 witnesses. And I will give power to my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy 1,260 days, 3.5 years, wearing sackcloth. These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 lampstands standing before God of the earth. And if anyone wants to harm them, fire proceeds from their mouth and devours their enemies. And if anyone wants to harm them, he must be killed in the same manner. These have power to shut heaven so that no rain falls in the days of their prophecy. And they have the power over the waters to turn them to blood and to strike the earth with all plagues and as often as they desire. The world's going to see these 2 witnesses. They're going to be talking about God in these times. And they're going to hate him. And then I'm just watching all the cars move around in here. Everybody's getting back into their places. Okay. I'm in 11:7. When they finish their testimony, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit will make war against them, overcome them, and kill them. And their dead bodies will lie in the streets of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. That's Jerusalem. But comparing it to Sodom and Egypt, okay. And those from the people, tribes, and tongues and nations, the whole world, will see their dead bodies 3.5 days and will not allow their dead bodies to be put into graves. And those who dwell on the earth will rejoice, make merry, and send gifts to one another, because these 2 prophets who tormented them, who dwell on the earth, now after 3.5, I'm in verse 11. Now after 3.5 days, the breath of life from God has entered into them, and they stood on their feet, and great fear fell on those who saw them. And they heard a loud voice from heaven saying, "Come up here." And they ascended to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies saw them. In the same hour was a great earthquake, and 1/10 of the city fell. And in the earthquake, 7,000 people were killed, because they rejoiced at God's witnesses dying. Won't accept them. and the rest were afraid and gave glory to the God of heaven. Now that's the ending of the second woe. Behold, the third woe is coming. And we have the final seventh trumpet in verse 15. And the seventh angel sounded, and there were loud voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world have become the kingdoms of our Lord and his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. And the 24 elders who sat before God on their thrones fell on their faces and worshiped God. We give thanks, O Lord God Almighty, the one who is and the one who was and who is to come, because you have taken great power and reigned. The nations were angry, and your wrath has come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that you should reward your servants, the prophets and the saints, and those who fear your name, small and great, and should destroy those who destroy the earth. Then the temple of God was opened in heaven, and the ark of the covenant was seen in his temple. And there were lightnings and noise and thunderings and earthquakes and hail. So this is all at the very end. So again, we're not going through linear. This is the layer of the trumpets. The seals went to the end. The trumpets have gone to the end. Now we're going to do some housekeeping. Now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed in the sun, and the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. Then, being with child, she cried out in labor, in pain to give birth. That's the Revelation 12 sign, which we saw in the heavens, the constellation Virgo, and the planets were added to the stars to come up with the right number. And Jupiter was in retrograde, traveling in a circle, so to speak, staying within the body. So that's our sign that things are starting. That's our sign that we're in the book of Revelation. Now we're not in the tribulation yet, which I'm following what Brenda Weltner is teaching, so you need to go find her studies on that. We're going to see that this sign is there, and then there's going to be another sign in heaven. Behold, a great fiery red dragon, having 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 diadems on its head. His tail drew a third of the stars of heaven to earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth, to devour her child as soon as it was born. That's why we have the rapture. He's ready to pounce on us with a third of his angels to kill us. That's why we don't have a timeline. We don't know where this fits. That's why this is kind of in bookkeeping. It's in between the trumpets and the bowls. It's going to happen. Now, we've already had the sign of the woman. We've already seen that. That was September 17th. That was on the trumpets. Was it trumpets then? September 17th, 2017. We haven't seen this sign yet. This is going to start everything. When he comes down here with his third of his angels, that's the start. Because we can't be here for him to work. We're the restraining force. But he's going to try to come down here and kill us. And that act in the next chapter is going to get him thrown out of heaven. We're going to have the rapture. The rapture is snatching us away from the claws of Satan. And I don't know how many angels he's got. He took a third of the angels in heaven with him. Now, he's going to take a third. I forgot. I lost my train of thought on that. So he's got a third of his angels. If I remember right, it's a third from all the angels, and then he takes a third of those. Okay, I think that was what I was trying to say. So, she bears a male child who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. Some say this is Jesus. But a lot of these things have double meanings. When he comes back to rule, we're going to rule with him. So that's why we're going to be here. Jesus is going to come down into the clouds. He's still in the heavens, if you will. Because when the two witnesses shut down the heavens, the rain stops. So there's layers of heaven. So when he comes down, that's his birth, and then we go to meet him. That's our birth. Not our born-again birth. This is our going to heaven birth. And then the woman is going to flee into the wilderness where she has a place prepared by God that they should feed her there for 1,260 days, 3.5 years. Now, right after that, it says Satan was thrown out of heaven, and a war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought. Michael has stood up to Satan only from the point of, in the past, of saying, I'm going to refer you to my boss, to God. And then backs away. He doesn't challenge him until this point. This is the first time Michael challenges Satan, because I'm sure God told him to. And they did not prevail, Satan and his angels, nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out, the serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Then I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now salvation and strength in the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come. For the accuser of his brethren, who accused them before God day and night, has been cast down. The bum Satan has been coming down here, spying on us, going up and telling God, and then living in heaven. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to the death. Now, part of me thinks that when we go to heaven, we're going to help fight Satan to get him thrown out because of this. The word of their testimony, that they did not love their lives to the death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell with them. Now, does that mean we're going to actually be fighting? I want a Star Wars lightsaber. Or are we just going to be praying, and that's how we fight them, by the word? The word's a two-edged sword. So for those of you that might be afraid of going up there and getting involved in a war, I think we just pray. And that prayer overwhelms the power of Satan, and he's cast out. It gives strength to Michael, which he didn't have before. Okay. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time. This is where he's got the power to do whatever he wants, because we're out of here. This is where there's going to be martyrs for Christians that didn't make their decision in time, but there's going to be a second rapture just before the wrath. It's going to take the 144,000 and any Christians that accepted Christ during that time. There's a rapture up front. We just saw where that's at. There's a rapture in the middle, and then there's a rapture at the end to get everybody out before the big battle. So there's 3 raptures. And we have 3 general beliefs, and I've mentioned this before, of the individual raptures, but they don't see the other 2. Don't find what you're looking for and then quit looking. There are 3 raptures, and everybody sees one of them. So there's the pre-trib rapture, where you got the pre-wrath rapture or the midterm rapture, and then we have one at the end. The people at the end, you're the most sorrowful because you believe there's only one rapture, and God is going to pull you out right at the very end, make you suffer all the way through. Is that a loving God? I don't think so. I could even accept the pre-wrath ones as somebody reasonable, but the seal judgments are ahead of that, and there's, trumpets. There's stuff that's bad that I wouldn't want my people, my bride, to have to go through. So I'd have a pre-trib for my bride, those that were late to the wedding party. The wedding feast is not at the beginning, by the way, it's at the end. But I'm just using this as an analogy. If the people that come late, I might have mercy on them and let them in eventually. And that's the second rapture. The third rapture is, of course, to clean up. Because those that are left, they're going to have the white throne judgment. Christians do not have the white throne judgment. We're clean, white robes. We don't need judgment. We've been forgiven for eternity. When you accept Christ, that's an eternal thing. It doesn't come on and off. You don't turn a switch on and off. It's forever. Now, you can block your access to the Spirit. You can quench or you can grieve the Spirit and then not have full access to Him. But that doesn't, you don't lose your salvation because of it. Now, there are religions where you do lose your salvation. Pay attention. There are various offshoots of Christianity that have created their own little utopian religion. They're going to be the ones that are saying, but we did this in your name. He's going to say, I don't know you. Leave. Don't completely shut them out. You're going to have to find a way to plant seeds there as well. Pray for your enemies. Because there's going to be those that are going to go into the next phase after our first rapture. And there's going to be those that are going to see the stuff happening and go, oh my God, did we miss? Do you like my little picture I put up with me in front of the bus? That was with one of my very early videos. Don't miss the bus. And I've even got my bag packed. You can have a bag pack too. The only thing you can put in it are souls that you've saved since you've been here. But you can have a pack bag. We're going to get new clothes. So is it going to be like the movie where our clothes are just going to drop to the ground? But we have like Elijah. He was wearing more than a cloak. But his other clothes didn't fall down, only his cloak. And the only reason his cloak fell back to Elisha is Elijah said that if my cloak falls back to you, then you will get a double portion. We should be praying for double portions all the time. All right, how are we doing? Okay, we still got a little bit of time. I'm going to just finish up this series with this video. And you need to go in and you need to look at the rest. You need to look at the bowl judgments. We've got the beasts and everything. The bowls start in 15 where they start talking about them. That'll be after the 144,000. And I'm just going to quickly list what the bowls do. This is out of my commentary. The first bowl, bodily sores on unbelievers. That means there will be believers. Okay? Not those that are, if you're a believer at the time of the raptures, you're going to go at those times. But if you miss the raptures, there's still going to be believers all the way up to the end. Otherwise, there's no point in continuing. He's doing all this to get those last few stragglers who just refuse to accept Christ, but are still have their name in the book of life. There are those that are never going to accept. And if that's all that was left, it would just end immediately with that. He'd take them and we'd be done with the book. But there still are souls to save. That's why we're here. That's why you have a job to do. That's why I have a job to do. Challenge God and say, find somebody for me today to witness to. All you got to do is plant the seeds. You don't have to convert. Okay, so the first bowl is bodily sores. The second bowl, the sea turns to blood. I don't know. Is that the Dead Sea or is that the oceans? There's a lot of water in the oceans. There's a lot of other stuff. Could this be because of wormwood or some other asteroid hitting it? We don't know. And then the third bowl, the fresh waters turn to blood. So the salt water first, the seas, and now the fresh water turn to blood. Probably not drinkable. The fourth bowl, people are scorched by the sun. We just saw where a few days ago some large body hit the sun and it caused a splash. When those coronas come out, if they come out far enough, they break away and that radiation goes off into whatever direction, whatever the side of the sun it leaves from. And something hit it just recently and it put out a bigger splash, but it's not coming towards us yet. If we get a big splash like that here, you're going to see something like this. The normal coronas that come out give us some radiation, but not enough to burn us. It's worse in space because the space station is outside the atmosphere and it's outside most of the magnetic belt. So they have to go into their little hidey holes when they're told to, when the astronomers tell them, okay, there's a massive radiation coming at you, get into your hidey holes and we'll tell you when to come out. They go in there and they shut themselves in. They're surrounded by water. The water storage for the space stations, they build little cubbies that they can get into, one for each person. Okay. The fifth bowl, darkness and pain cover the people. So if the sun is having problems and the earth is having problems, it's going to be dark. And pain is going to be bothering the people. Could that be the radiation from a nuclear war? I don't know. It's not good. It's all you have to know. It says here that the Euphrates River dries up. That's going to be in Revelation 16. We're seeing certain rivers dry up. If the rain were to stop because of the two witnesses, then it's going to cause problems. The Euphrates could dry up. The seventh bowl, the earth is shaken violently. The earth is shaken. Not this mountain is shaking, but the earth is shaking. These are the things that are the wrath of God on earth. So as bad as the other things were, these are worse. Now you can see where it says you can attack everybody, who's a non-believer, which means that there will be believers that have to still put up with this. And if this channel is still available somehow in all this, I hope people find these videos and find that their solution is real simple. Accept Christ the moment you realize that you need to. You're not going to work your way to heaven. I don't care if you're a nice guy. You work in the orphanage. You feed people who are starving. Those are good things, and keep them up, but do them for God as a Christian. Don't do them for yourself, because you're not going to earn yourself a way in. So, I think that's all I need to do. After the bowls, we get into more bookkeeping. We've got the fall of Babylon, and the world's going to mourn. The beast is going to be defeated, and the beast destroys Babylon, and then the beast is going to be defeated. And then Satan's going to be bound for 1,000 years, the millennium. And the millennium is not in the Bible. It literally means 1,000 years. So when it says 1,000 years, that's the millennium. And then they've got the great white throne. We have the New Jerusalem coming to earth. We're going to have paradise again. Probably the Garden of Eden 2 will be better than the Garden of Eden 1. And the tree of life will be there. And you can't sin again by eating from it, because God's going to give us permission. I'm curious what kind of fruit it is, because it's not an apple. Somebody just assigned it an apple. We've got apple trees all over the world, and nobody's living longer lives because they're eating apples. The tree of life gives life. But we're almost to the end. We're watching this fall. Trumpets is next month. Things can happen anytime between now and trumpets. The dragon coming to earth with a third of his angels, stars, angels. That can happen anytime. It doesn't have to happen over the feast days. I personally suspect it won't, but it may happen right before. And then when we're out of the way, then the focus is going to switch. It's going to switch from the Christians, which we've been in for 2,000 years. It's going to switch back to the Jews for their final push, their final chance to accept Christ. They're looking for him. They were looking for him when he came the first time. But those evil leaders of the Jews back then, when they tore down the temple, they rewrote the rules that they're supposed to follow, and they have everything in there that says, have nothing to do with Jesus, have nothing to do with the Christians, hate them. Because they were the ones that crucified Jesus, and they still hated him. That hatred has carried over now for 2,000 years amongst the Jews. I mentioned that I was going to a synagogue in my youth, but when I became a Christian, they asked me to leave. They asked me to leave the synagogue. That hatred is still there, and they're going to pay a price. The ones that started all this are already aware that they made a mistake, but they can't fix it. And the people that they've taught have been carrying on that tradition. When I hear the word tradition, I can't help but think of Fiddler on the Roof. So you got to be able to say it that way, and I don't want to try. I'll mess it up. But that tradition has been carrying on, and it's why we have a separation. The Christians did the same thing afterwards. Martin Luther didn't want to have anything to do with the Jews because they killed Christ, not realizing that they were just a tool. Christ had to die, or we wouldn't be saved. God will use the tools available to him, good or bad, it doesn't matter. Because he knows everything. He knows that they're going to be there with that tool on that day, at that point, and that's when they bring his people in. God brings his people in, and they use the tool. God is that smart, that good, and he knows everything. He's far and above, ahead of what Satan is even trying to do. He already knows what Satan's going to do, and he's already ready with a rebuttal. He's already told us that there's going to be a rapture. But he won't tell us the time because that's really up to Satan. He's letting Satan start. We're pulled away. And then God says, okay, the earth is yours. Just don't harm the people that have their name in the book of life. You can make them miserable, but you can't kill them. Some will be. Some will be martyred. God only knows who those are. Did these people ahead of time volunteer for that? I don't know. Some of the stuff is above my pay grade. But eventually, it will all get sorted out, and we're going to be in heaven watching all the rest of this stuff. And it doesn't have to take 3.5 years to go through the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls. That can finish early. The beast has his 3.5 years. But the tribulation, the wrath, that kind of stuff, that can finish early. In fact, it says that it will. If he didn't finish it early, no one would survive. But the 3.5 years still have to go out because the beast needs to have his full reign. But again, we won't be here. That's why I'm stopping where I've stopped. You can feel free to read now that you know how this works. When you read the other things coming in the bowl judgments, those are layered over the top, but they're layered over the last 3.5 years. but they don't go all the way to the end. All right. Keep spreading the word, praying for as many people as you can. Do you have your prayer list? And do you follow up on it? We should have a prayer list with people's names on it, and we need to follow up. We should read from that every day and mention these names audibly. Say them out loud. Don't say them in your head. There's more power in the voice. Pray out loud. But you can pray in a whisper. It's still out loud. You don't have to scream it from the mountaintop, but pray out loud. It's got more power. The Spirit of God in us will hear whatever type of prayer you're doing. Even if you cannot come up with the words, the Spirit will translate to God. But pray out loud. Give strength to you and to God to be able to carry on this conversation. Pray daily. At least one quiet moment. At least. I recommend a quiet moment in the morning and a quiet moment at the evening to kind of close out the day. And of course, pray without ceasing during the day, but you don't have to get down on your knees. You can be walking along, you can be working, you can be mowing the lawn praying to God. You can pray to God from anywhere. And I won't go gross you out with the examples, but you can be praying anywhere. Okay? No excuses for praying. Okay, now if you watch this far, you owe me a like. Like this video. I'm getting, 50, 60 likes on a video that has 300 or 400 views. Now I can see where some people are starting the video and then, no, that's not what I want, and going someplace else. That's fine. But if you're watching more than 5 minutes, you should be liking this. We've got to beat this algorithm that YouTube is using. The only way to beat it is to get lots of likes, subscribe to this channel. You can reverse any of this stuff, but I don't know why you would. But like, subscribe. If you want to know when I release a video, if you forget, click the bell icon. But I try to release every morning at 6 a.m. Now, I'm not up at 6 a.m. I schedule it the night before. I record it the day before. Typically, I think it's about 11 o'clock now. Sometimes I get out here earlier before it gets too hot. Fortunately, the days are cooling off. I'm only going to be in the low 80s today, I think. It's been in the high 90s and the temperatures felt like, 105. We've already been through that. I don't think we have any more of that coming. Maybe the Indian summer, which we get in October, we may not be here for that. But I'm going to start gradually switching out some of my stuff. I'm going to take out my air conditioning unit and replace it with a heater. The heater will only be running when I'm seated in my chair. It's an electric heater. It says as long as I got electricity, I'm going to let them pay for it. I can put in a gas one. Those little buddy heaters are great. In fact, whatever you try to think you're going to need, buy the next one down because they put out a lot of heat. But they're fire. The electric ones are good for what they can do. I got to swap out my clothes. I'm going to still have t-shirts, but I may have a few long sleeve shirts, flannels and things like that to wear over the top. I have to have my heavy duty jacket. I'm wearing shorts now. I have to switch to pants. I've got Under Armours that I can wear that keep my legs warm. 2 layers of socks. I'll be wearing my boots instead of my tennis shoes. I'm ready to switch. I don't know when the temperatures are going to change. All the people that I follow, the farmers, the preppers, and those that are looking at the atmosphere and what's going on, are all saying we're in for a cold, long, cold, hard winter. Now, if you want to go look at an almanac, something they write ahead of time, you can go do that. I believe the farmers, because they have to know how to plant. Now, some of them look at seeds and things like that. They cut them open in their certain shapes or bandings or whatever. They can know that means that You're getting ready for a cold winter or a normal winter or whatever. But whatever method that you use, they're telling us to be careful and wait for a cold winter. That means I'm probably going to get snow while I'm camping. That's okay. I've camped in snow. I've backpacked in snow. I've pitched my tent on the side of a mountain where the wind is blowing so hard and the snow is so bad that you can't see 3 feet in front of you. And I'm with a small group. We just stop where we're at, find a level enough place to pitch the tent, crawl in. We don't even fix a meal or nothing. The weather's that bad. I've done that, so I'm not going to challenge Mother Nature and say you can't make it cold, but I can handle it. And I'll love it because I'm outside in God's creation. He created the hot and the cold too. They didn't have seasons before the flood. They got the seasons after the flood. And they got the rainbow. Of course, that had to be corrupted by Satan. Satan has to copy or corrupt. That's all he can do. He's not original. He's a coward. He's an arrogant coward. That's who Satan is. And I'm not worried about him at all because I'm standing right next to Jesus. I have the Spirit of God in me. And part of our daily prayer is to lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Some translations read the evil one. Same thing. So that's part of your daily prayer. Ask for protection from the evil one. And God, throughout the rest of the Bible, protects his own. That's why we're going to have the rapture, hopefully, within the next month. Depends on whether he wants to use trumpets. You can blow trumpets for any number of reasons, so it doesn't have to be the Feast of Trumpets. They had trumpets for all kinds of things. And it's just like when you had the old phones that had the party lines, and you'd ring it so many rings, ring, 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 ring. Well, that pattern, somebody knew to answer it, because everybody was on one line, called a party line. This is before the phones got individual lines. Now you don't even need it. I'm talking to you on a phone. Okay, a phone that can take videos, can edit, can go online to social media properly. Oh, and I'm telling people now, I don't know how far we're going to go into this if we don't get raptured this fall. We need to start looking about what they call it in the prepper world, going gray. Don't be complaining about things on social media. Don't pull yourself out and draw yourself out unless God has given you a specific command to do that. Don't take it on yourself to do that. I know someone who got so mad because they kept getting banned on YouTube because they were constantly hitting on the establishment, calling them out on everything. And they say, don't do this, and they go right back and do it again. And then they get banned, and then they get mad. Don't draw attention to yourself. That's going gray. I'm a little off the beaten path. I'm not in the city, so I'm in a good shape here, but they could find me. If they find this channel, they know where I'm at roughly. I tell you where I'm camping pretty much most of the time. So they could find me, so I've got to be careful. And don't respond with violence. No matter what the government does, don't respond with violence. Pray about it. Now, if God tells you to do something, pray about it again. And if you keep getting the message that you're supposed to respond in violence, I would question your connection with God. I really would. I don't think we're supposed to respond in violence. Now, if God commands you to do this, you do what God tells you to do. But I would test it. I'd put out fleece after fleece. Go back and look up that if you don't know what I'm talking about. But you're going to have to really test it. How many people kill somebody and say, well, the devil made me do it, or Jesus made me do it? Well, the ones that said the devil made me do it are probably right. The ones that said Jesus made me do it didn't know what they were talking about. And if you get dreams, most dreams are meant for you, unless you're told to share it. We're seeing in here like where John is seeing these visions. He's told to share them. But eventually he's told to stop. Daniel was told to share. The prophets were told, I don't think we've got prophets down here today. We're going to have some that appear to be, but they're going to be working for Satan, so you've got to be very careful. Do not be deceived. Okay, Jesus' first instruction for going into the end times. Do not be deceived. Either through something you get. Now it says in the end times that young man will see visions and old man will have dreams. Well, good. I'm old, I like to have dreams. But you got to test these. If it goes against the Word of God, throw it away. Be careful and don't stick out. Now, the two witnesses, they're told to stick out, and they've been given the power to stick out. But they didn't say, special witnesses in Georgia or any place else. The two witnesses are in the holy city, where they're supposed to be. And they have the power, seemingly, of Moses and Elijah, who were at the Transfiguration. So it seems logical, but we won't know for sure. Now, if we get raptured, I think we're going to get all the information all at once, so we're going to know. I hope. We're certainly going to get new bodies because we can't be in heaven with our earthly bodies. There are some that are going to go straight from the earth and their earthly bodies into the tribulation and not get heavenly bodies until the end. But we're not part of that. We're going straight to heaven on the bus. Now, I like to think of it as a bus, but I don't know how we're going. I've never flown without a plane or an apparatus or something. So I hope it's an e-ticket. You have to be really old and know Disneyland to know what I'm talking about. All right. I'm jabbering, so let's go ahead and end this. Be safe. Don't draw attention to yourself any more than you have to. Keep getting the word out. But don't fight with the people who don't want the word. And when I had my YouTube channel challenged, somebody reported me because they wouldn't have found it otherwise. Because I had really nothing negative to say, yet they said I'm promoting hate speech. Well, to the devil, it is hate speech. So be careful who you friend online. I just cut back a whole bunch of people on my YouTube channel. I'm trying to have a lower profile. A lot of things that I used to do, I'm not doing anymore. We see how far we can get into this. We got to carry the message as long as we can until we're pulled out. Till we meet in the clouds. God bless.